I never thought my life would unravel over a single text message. But that's exactly what happened. It was my birthday, a night that was supposed to be filled with laughter, love, and celebration. My closest friends had gathered at a cozy, upscale restaurant, raising their glasses in a toast to another year of my life. The warm glow of candlelight flickered across the table. The scent of gourmet dishes filled the air, and I felt for a brief moment that everything in my world was as perfect as it could be. Then, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting a flood of birthday wishes, maybe even a sweet message from Ethan, my boyfriend of 5 years. Instead, my entire reality shattered in a matter of seconds. Hey Sam, I wanted to be upfront with you. I found someone better. She's younger, hotter, and honestly, an upgrade. I transferred our money into my personal account since I was making most of it anyway. No hard feelings. Enjoy your birthday. I blinked, rereading the message, my mind struggling to process the sheer audacity of it. My hands tightened around my phone, but outwardly, I remained composed. No gasps, no tears, no dramatic reaction, only a sharp inhale as I straightened my posture, masking the storm brewing inside me. How dare he? The words on the screen felt surreal, as if they belonged in some cruel joke. But the cold truth was undeniable. Ethan, the man I had trusted, loved, and built a future with, had just discarded me like I was nothing more than an old jacket he no longer wanted. And on my birthday, no less. I forced myself to stay calm, glancing around the table to see if anyone had noticed my sudden shift in mood. My best friend, Olivia, caught my eye, her brows knitting together in silent concern. I knew if I showed even the smallest crack, she'd demand to know what was wrong. But I wasn't ready for that, not yet. Instead, I did something Ethan never would have expected. I smiled, and I typed back, "Congrats." One word. No anger, no begging for an explanation, no tears, just a quiet, calculated response. Because what Ethan didn't know, what he never even considered in his arrogance, was that I had seen this coming. I had been paying attention for months. The sudden late nights at work, even though his job never required overtime. The way his phone was always face down, notifications turned off. The dismissive way he'd wave off our future plans as if they were childish fantasies. The money. Ah, yes. That had been the real giveaway. Ethan used to be generous, paying for dinners without hesitation, surprising me with thoughtful gifts. But then slowly, his habits changed. His Venmo payments became delayed, his contributions to rent suddenly forgotten. And last month, the biggest red flag of all. He suggested we move all our joint savings into an account under his name. "It's just easier that way," he had said with a lazy shrug. "I'm better with money, babe. I'll make sure we're set." I had smiled, nodded, even let him believe he had convinced me. But that very afternoon, I had walked into the bank and opened a new account. One he knew nothing about. Over the past few weeks, I had been slowly transferring my portion of our shared savings into it, careful not to raise suspicion. I hadn't drained the account completely. That would have been too obvious. But I had taken enough to ensure I wouldn't be left with nothing if my suspicions proved true. And now, here I was, holding the proof in the form of a cruel, careless text message. An hour later, as I stepped into my apartment, the first thing I did was change the locks. The apartment lease? In my name. Ethan had never bothered putting his name on it, dismissing it as boring paperwork that I was better at handling. That laziness was about to cost him big time. By the time midnight rolled around, Ethan no longer had a home to come back to. At 1 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from Ethan. "Hey, super weird, but I think my key isn't working. Can you let me in?" I let the message sit, read, but unanswered. 50 minutes later, another one. Sam? What's going on? I need to grab some of my stuff." Still, I said nothing. Because Ethan's stuff, his suits, his expensive watches, his sneakers that he never took care of, was already packed in trash bags and sitting in the hallway outside the apartment. When he finally tried to enter his old life, he would find himself standing in the hallway, staring at his belongings like a stranger on the curb. But this was just the beginning. Ethan thought he had played me. He thought he had taken everything and left me with nothing. But what he didn't realize was that he had just set himself up for the most spectacular downfall of his life. And I was about to watch it all fall apart.
Part 2. The first domino falls. I woke up the next morning feeling strangely light, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I didn't have to wake up wondering if Ethan was in a bad mood, if I would say something that would set him off, or if I needed to tiptoe around his fragile ego. The apartment was peaceful. Mine. Then my phone buzzed. Sam, what the hell is going on? I took a sip of my coffee before unlocking my screen. The notifications were endless. Missed calls, texts, even voicemails, each one growing more desperate than the last. Why isn't my key working? Are you seriously locking me out? I need to get inside. Stop acting crazy. Sam, answer me. This is childish. I let the words sit there, unread, but not unnoticed. Ethan had never been denied access before. He had always moved through life expecting doors to be held open for him, money to be available at his convenience, and women, like me, to stay right where he left them. But I was done playing the role of his passive, forgiving girlfriend. I ignored his calls and went about my morning. By noon, I made my first move. I dialed the bank's fraud department. Hi, I need to report unauthorized activity on my joint account, I said, keeping my voice calm and polite. I have text message proof that my ex transferred funds without my permission. The representative was more than helpful. Within minutes, an investigation was launched. That meant Ethan's precious little victory, the money he had smugly transferred out of our shared savings, was now frozen. At 1 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, his texts had changed in tone. What did you do? My account is locked. I can't access any of my money. Fix this, now. Oh, I was just getting started. Ethan had underestimated me, the same way he always had. He had assumed I would cry, beg, or maybe even try to reason with him. Instead, I was dismantling his perfect little escape plan, piece by piece. At 2:30 p.m., I made another call, this time to my credit card company. Hi, I need to report unauthorized transactions on my card. I didn't approve these charges. I knew Ethan had used my card for his grand weekend getaway with Melissa. The fancy hotel, the rental car, the expensive dinner reservations. It was all booked under my saved payment information. And now, declined. By 3:15 p.m., my friend Olivia sent me a message. Oh my God, Sam, you're not going to believe this. Ethan and his new girl just got turned away from their hotel. They had to leave because his card got declined. I am screaming. I smiled. Ethan was unraveling. At 5 p.m., the inevitable happened. My phone rang. Ethan. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then, finally, I answered. Sam, what did you do? His voice was tight with barely concealed panic. I took a slow sip of my coffee. I have no idea what you're talking about. My account is frozen. My credit cards aren't working. I just got turned away from my hotel like an idiot. Fix this. I almost laughed. He still thought he was in control, still believed that demanding things from me would get him what he wanted. That sounds like a you problem, Ethan, I said lightly. You're being petty, he snapped. This isn't a game, Sam. I tilted my head, pretending to consider his words. It wasn't a game when you drained our savings either, was it? Silence. He hated when I pointed out the truth. Ethan had never been good at taking accountability, and now that the consequences were knocking at his door, he was scrambling for a way out. But there wasn't one. Look, he said, his tone shifting, trying to sound reasonable. We don't have to do this. Let's just meet up and talk. Talk? Now he wanted to talk? I almost felt bad for him. Almost. I don't think so, I said, my voice firm. Ethan exhaled sharply. Sam, I know you're pissed, but I hung up. That was the moment he realized he had lost.
The moment I heard Melissa's voice on the other end of the call, I almost laughed. The woman who had so proudly taken my place was now calling me? It was almost poetic. I leaned back in my chair, twirling my coffee spoon between my fingers. Melissa, I said, feigning surprise. What a surprise. To what do I owe this pleasure? There was a long pause on her end. Then, a deep sigh. Look, I know you probably hate me, and I don't blame you, but I just. She hesitated, as if the words were too painful to admit. I need to know, how much of this did you plan? I smirked. Ah, there it is. Melissa was finally realizing that she wasn't the upgrade. She was just another pawn. Plan? I repeated, feigning innocence. I don't know what you mean. She scoffed. Ethan's broke, his job is on the line, and he's crashing on my couch like some homeless ex-frat boy. This isn't just bad luck, Sam. You did something. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Melissa, let me ask you something. Did Ethan ever tell you why he and I shared that bank account? Silence. Did he ever mention whose name is on the apartment lease? I continued. Or how he's been living off my credit cards for months? More silence. Then finally, in a small, almost bitter voice, she whispered, No. He said you owed him that money, that you were controlling, that you'd never let him have any independence. I let out a short, humorless laugh. So he convinced you that stealing from me was just him taking back control? Melissa exhaled sharply. God, I was such an idiot. I didn't argue, because, yeah, she kind of was. But I wasn't done yet. Melissa, let me give you a pro tip, I said, my voice smooth as silk. Men like Ethan? They don't upgrade, they downgrade. Every single time. She didn't respond. You were just his next financial plan, I added. And now that I cut him off, you're the new ATM. The realization must have finally hit her, because I heard a shaky breath on the other end of the line. What do I do? She whispered. I smiled. That's not my problem, sweetheart. Welcome to the club. And with that, I hung up. The final blow. By the next morning, Ethan was officially unemployed. His company didn't just fire him for dating a subordinate. Turns out HR did a full review of his expense reports and discovered that he had been stealing money from the company. At 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. Ethan. I let it ring. Again at 11:05, then 11:10. By the fifth attempt, I finally picked up, just to hear him sweat. Sam, he started, his voice low, controlled, like he was trying to sound calm but failing. You need to stop this. I smiled. Stop what? You know exactly what. His voice sharpened. My bank is frozen. My job is gone. My rental is canceled. My stuff is in trash bags outside the apartment. You made your point, okay? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Oh, Ethan, I sighed dramatically. I haven't even started. His breathing sharpened. You're ruining my life. I let out a soft chuckle. No, Ethan. You ruined your life. I just stopped carrying the weight of it for you. Silence. Then after a long pause, in a voice that was suddenly very, very small, he muttered, I messed up, huh? I smirked. Yeah, you did. And with that, I hung up. For good. Ethan was officially finished.
Ethan was unraveling, and I was watching it all unfold like a perfectly scripted drama. His calls became more frequent, his messages more desperate. Every hour, a new notification. Sam, just talk to me. We can fix this. Please, just call me. You went too far. I lost my job, my money. Was that what you wanted? I read each message with the same level of detachment I'd have for spam emails. He wasn't my problem anymore. But the best part? He had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The last straw for Melissa. 2 days later, my phone buzzed again. This time from an unknown number. I already knew who it was before I even picked up. Melissa, I greeted sweetly. How's my ex treating you? Cut the crap, Sam, she snapped, her voice sharp, but beneath it I could hear exhaustion. He's crashing on my couch, living out of a duffel bag, and acting like the world did this to him. He has nothing, and somehow he's still blaming you. I smirked. Sounds about right. There was a long pause. Then, softer, almost embarrassed, she whispered, I think I made a mistake. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? You mean when you started sleeping with someone else's boyfriend? Or when you believed every lie he told you? A shaky breath. He told me I was the upgrade, that he'd build a better life with me. And instead, I finished for her, you ended up with a man-child who can't even afford a motel. She didn't argue. Because we both knew the truth, Ethan had never been capable of upgrading his life. He had downgraded. And now, Melissa was paying the price. "What do I do?" she finally asked. I chuckled. "Well, Melissa, that's not my problem. But if I were you," I paused, letting the moment stretch, "I'd throw the trash out." The final blow. It only took her 3 more days to do exactly that. At 6 a.m., I woke up to the sweetest message. "Guess who just got dumped? Looks like your ex is officially homeless. Thought you'd enjoy the update. Melissa." I grinned. It was over. Ethan had no job, no money, no apartment, and now no girlfriend. But the universe? It wasn't done punishing him yet. The reckoning. When Ethan transferred all our shared money into his personal account, he must have thought he was brilliant. But after I reported it as fraud, the bank launched an official investigation. And guess what? Stealing money from a joint account without permission is a crime. At 4 p.m., I got a call from a mutual friend. "Sam, have you checked your messages?" I grabbed my phone. There it was, a screenshot of Ethan's arrest record, fraud investigation, misappropriation of funds, a pending case with his former employer for expense fraud. I gasped. Then I laughed. Ethan wasn't just broke. He was going to have a permanent record. The last call at 10 p.m., my phone rang again. This time I answered. A quiet, defeated voice came through. "Sam." "Ethan?" I replied, voice light. "Enjoying rock bottom?" You ruined me," he muttered, barely above a whisper. "No," I corrected, my tone sharper now. "You ruined yourself. I just stopped covering for you." Silence. Then, after what felt like an eternity, a broken whisper. "I wish I could take it all back." I sighed. "Well, Ethan, you can't." And with that, I hung up. For good.
I thought I was done with Ethan. I truly did. But people like him don't just fade into the background. They claw, beg, and desperately try to hold on to whatever illusion of power they think they have left. And Ethan? He was drowning. The messages didn't stop. "Sam, please just talk to me. I swear I didn't mean to hurt you. You got what you wanted, right? Just, let's meet, please." I ignored them all. But then, on a Friday evening, something happened that made me realize Ethan was nowhere near rock bottom yet. The knock at my door. I had just poured myself a glass of wine, ready to settle in for a well-deserved night of peace, when there was a knock at my apartment door. At first, I assumed it was my neighbor, or maybe a delivery mix-up. But then I heard it, that voice I never wanted to hear again. "Sam, open up." My blood ran cold. I slowly walked to the peephole, heart pounding, and there he was, Ethan, disheveled, hollow-eyed, desperate. I didn't open the door. I didn't even breathe too loudly. I just stood there, watching him through the tiny glass, wondering how the hell he had found me. And then, as if he could feel my presence, he pressed a hand against the door and whispered, "Please, I have nothing left." A twisted part of me almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the text, the one he had sent me on my birthday. I found someone better, someone younger, hotter, an upgrade. And just like that, any lingering pity evaporated. So I did the only thing left to do. I called security. The last shred of his dignity. The apartment security team was fast. Within 5 minutes, 2 guards were marching down the hall toward Ethan, who still stood pathetically at my door, waiting. When they grabbed him by the arm, he fought. "You can't do this," he snapped, struggling against their grip. "She's my ex. She'll talk to me." One of the guards snorted. "Yeah? Doesn't look like it, man." I cracked the door open just a sliver, enough for him to see my unapologetic expression. "Go home, Ethan," I said coolly. "Oh, wait. You don't have one, do you?" His face crumbled, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw it. Genuine, raw regret. I didn't stay to watch the guards escort him out. I closed the door, locked it, and finally breathed. The ultimate fall. I assumed that was the last time I'd hear from Ethan. I was wrong, because Karma, she wasn't done with him yet. The next day, my phone buzzed with a new message from a mutual friend. "Did you hear? Ethan got arrested. Again?" I blinked. "Again?" I called immediately. "He got caught trying to book a luxury hotel under someone else's name," my friend explained, barely containing their amusement. "Guess he thought if he couldn't afford a new life, he'd just steal one." I let out a slow laugh. It was pathetic. Ethan, the man who once thought he was better than me, smarter than me, richer than me, was now a criminal trying to scam his way into survival. And the best part? I felt nothing. Not anger, not revenge, not satisfaction, just peace. Because while Ethan was falling apart, I was finally free.
I had waited for this moment, played it over and over in my head 1,000 times. But as I sat across from Ethan in that dimly lit cafe, watching him shift uncomfortably in his seat, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad either. I was simply done. Ethan had called me, his voice hesitant, almost nervous. "We need to talk," he had said. The same man who had walked out of my life without hesitation now sounded like someone with everything to lose. And maybe he did. I agreed to meet, not because I wanted to hear him out, but because I wanted to see it with my own eyes. The regret, the realization, the slow unraveling of the man who once thought he was untouchable. And now, here we were. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, the kind that weighed heavier than any excuse he could come up with. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, clearly trying to find the right approach. But nothing he could say would change what he had done. "I made a mistake," he finally said, his voice quiet, almost pleading. I raised an eyebrow, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "Which part?" I asked, my tone colder than even I expected. "The part where you left me for someone else? The part where you thought she was an upgrade? Or the part where you realized you lost everything?" He exhaled sharply, rubbing his hands together. "I thought I wanted something different. I thought, I don't know, maybe I was chasing something I never really needed." I laughed, shaking my head. Typical. "So, let me guess. Things didn't work out with her?" Ethan flinched. His jaw clenched for a moment before he sighed. "No, they didn't." "Of course they didn't. They never do." "She wasn't what I thought she was," he admitted. "It wasn't real. It was all surface level, and I was too blind to see it." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "And now what, Ethan? You expect me to just take you back? To pretend none of this ever happened?" "No," he said quickly, shaking his head. "I don't expect that. I want you to know I regret everything. I thought I was making the right choice, but I wasn't. And now..." He hesitated before looking me directly in the eye. "Now I see what I lost." I studied him for a moment, searching for sincerity in his face. And maybe, deep down, he truly did regret it. Maybe he did wish he had never walked away. But that didn't change anything. I took a deep breath, setting my cup down with a soft clink against the saucer. "Ethan, do you know what the worst part of all of this was?" He swallowed hard. "Tell me." I held his gaze, unflinching. "It wasn't losing you. It was losing the version of myself that believed in you." His face fell. Good. Because that was the truth. For months, I had wondered if I wasn't good enough. If I should have tried harder, fought for him, begged him to stay. But now, sitting across from him, I realized I was never the problem. Ethan had made his choice. He had walked away, convinced that I was replaceable, that he was trading up. But life has a way of humbling the arrogant. "I don't hate you, Ethan," I said, standing up and grabbing my bag. "I don't even feel sorry for you. I just don't care anymore." He blinked, clearly taken aback. "That's it?" he asked. "Just like that?" I smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Just like that." And then I walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't hesitate. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Ethan had wanted to control the narrative, to be the one who decided when our story ended. But he didn't get that privilege. I did. And as I stepped out into the crisp evening air, I realized something. I hadn't lost anything that day. I had won.
If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that betrayal is not the end. It's a beginning. When Ethan walked away, I thought I had lost everything. I thought I would be the one left picking up the pieces. But in reality, I was being set free. Free from manipulation, free from lies, and free to build a life that was truly my own. People like Ethan always think they can walk over others and never face consequences. They believe they are untouchable. But life has a way of humbling the arrogant and rewarding those who refuse to settle for less. I didn't need revenge. His downfall came all on its own. And in the end, the best thing I ever did was choose myself. So, if you've ever been in my shoes, remember this. You don't have to beg for respect. You don't have to fight to prove your worth. The moment someone treats you as disposable, walk away and watch them realize their biggest mistake. What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to Scylla Reddit Stories for more real-life betrayals, revenge, and empowering stories.